waterbuck is part of the antelope genus and is native to Western, Central, Eastern and Southern Africa. It has a reddish-brown shaggy coat, which progressively grows darker with maturity, and a white bib under the throat. It is generously covered with thin, brownish, oily grease that has a distinct, musky odor. It's easily recognized by a distinctive white band on the rump encircling the tail and the long, bow-shaped ringed horns of the male, which go up to 100 centimeters long. The female has no horns. The waterbuck stands up to 1.3 meters at the shoulder and weighs from 160 to 240 kilograms. The waterbuck roves in small herds in marshes, scrub and savanna areas near water, where they mainly eat grass, and require large quantities of water, hence their partiality to water bodies. The waterbucks share a social life similar to that of the cobs. They are territorial, and a herd usually has one dominant male with numerous females. Young males form bachelor herds, which are a training ground for the bucks to perfect their skills in order to go and fight the dominant male and take over the herd of females. This is part of their training process, and they will choose a partner according to their horns, which must be the same size. These wrestling matches are preparing them for a major territorial fight with a dominant male in order to take over a leg in the traditional breeding grounds. Waterbucks will give birth to a single calf after a 7 to 8 month gestation period. Waterbucks have a lifespan of 18 years.
Heads of state discuss a neutral force for Congo as regional summit on the Great Lakes opens.
So as the Great Lakes Conference officially opens here in Kampala, we will have all the latest, including a spatial assessment on how can be achieved during the two-day summit, as we speak to regional political analyst Nicholas Opio live in the studio tonight.
Plus the very latest as clashes rock Kasese town on the eve of the hotly contested woman MP by-election.
Good evening and a very warm welcome to Tuesday's edition of NTV Tonight. Let's now take a look at the rest of the headlines.
Cracking the whip, 10 pharmaceutical companies face closure over substandard drugs.
Tear gas and scuffles. Tensions rise in Kasese ahead of the woman parliamentary by-election. Also tonight, I will not put my guard down
permanent secretary in the Prime Minister's office, speaks out on glaring graft in his department. Thank you for joining us on NTV tonight. I'm Gabriel Apenu.
And I am Faith Riho. Now tonight, okay, I have been speaking to...
So as Kasese residents plan to head to the polls from early tomorrow morning, they may not only be weighing in on the manifesto of the three candidates in the race, but also the allure of their party presidents.
President Museveni dug his heels in the district, pledging the creation of 2 new districts out of Kasese as he campaigned for the NRM candidate in Nyakasanga.
Well, Kasese, meanwhile, FDC President Kizza Besigye also preached his message of peace.
It was early this morning when the police and army surrounded the residence of the former Member of Parliament and District Forum for Democratic Change mobilizer Christopher Chibazanga. Close to 16 FDC officials were there, and the police argues that they were plotting to incite the public and disrupt the electoral process in Kasese. But the move only agitated FDC youth and supporters who started calling for their release.
Chibazanga is a free man. Chibazanga wants to free the police of Uganda. Even policemen are underpaid.
Senior FDC stalwarts such as Mugisha Montu and Alice Alaso also pleaded for the release of their supporter, but the atmosphere soon degenerated with the police engaging in scuffles with angry supporters. The police then tried to disperse the crowd by firing tear gas.
I cannot tell you their names, I cannot tell you the cases, but we have them, 2 suspects. Out of the 18, we released the 16. 2 have remained with police.
Over 12 youth were arrested in the scuffle, though others pleaded for their innocence.
You see it. Even you, even this one, you see.
The type of leaders we have in the opposition who are carrying hooligans from all over the country. They brought hooligans from Busia. I know Kuzaima is here. Amin is here. And they're terrorizing people. They brought hooligans from Mbale.
The NRM candidate Rehama Mohinder, reacting to the incident, accused the FDC of disrupting polls, while the FDC candidate Winnie Chiza said her supporters are being harassed.
Or whether it is to intimidate our people, whether it is to kill the people of Kasese, I don't know what the government has for us. And I warn them that in tomorrow's election, should they cause the caveat they are causing right now, they stand warned, because the public is watching. The confusion they are creating in the district, they will have to answer.
They have even beaten my car, they have burnt my posters, and they are even threatening and beating my supporters. So I'm worried.
Hopeful tomorrow, I'm expecting 85% according to the voters, according to the way they've been giving me support.
Meanwhile, the Electoral Commission said it's set for the polls.
And we believe by 7, all the voters should get to the polling stations ready for voting.
For many of the electorates in Kasese can't wait to go and cast the votes tomorrow, with all sides promising victory on their sides. However, some of the electorates that we've talked to are scared of the massive deployment of the police. Maurice Chol, NTV in Kasese.
Well, I apologize for the mix-up in some of those stories. Well, here now is the story of Kasese residents that plan to go to the polls from early tomorrow morning. They may not only be weighing in on the manifesto of the three candidates in the race, but also the allure of their party presidents. President Yoweri Museveni dug his heels in the district, pledging the creation of 2 new districts out of Kasese as he campaigned for the NRM candidate in Nyakasanga. Meanwhile, FDC President Kizza Besigye also preached his message of change to the electorate.
The campaigns ahead of tomorrow's women MP elections for Kasese district came to a close yesterday. Leaders from across the political spectrum have been on their toes during this tense period, each trying to woo votes for their respective candidates. President Yoweri Museveni was also present at one of the rallies organized by Rehma Muhindo, the NRM candidate, where he promised to grant 3 new districts to Kasese.
Freedom of land, so that you have got freedom to choose what you want. Now, once you have got Uganda, then you can do whatever you want to do according to the law.
Meanwhile, FDC President Dr. Kizza Besigye was also in Kasese campaigning for the FDC candidate, Winnie Kizza.
Why did we oppose NRM? And it is just one point. They abandoned what we fought for.
Tomorrow's by-election will see 3 candidates: Winnie Kizza of FDC, Rehma Muhindo of NRM, and Rosemary Masika of FDC.
Now tonight, medical workers say they are dismayed by the latest increases in the allowances of legislators, yet their pleas for similar increases have fallen on deaf ears. Uganda Medical Association President Dr. Margaret Mongera says the poor remuneration of medical workers is causing high levels of brain drain. Dr. Mongera says that if not resolved, this could cause the country to fail to handle epidemics. Meanwhile, one new suspected Ebola case was yesterday admitted at Kagadi Hospital, bringing the total number of admissions to 30. Solomon Seranja has been following the outbreak of the disease, which has so far claimed 17 lives.
The latest increase in the allowance of legislators by almost 50% continues to rattle feathers in many quarters, not least the medical profession. The president of the Uganda Medical Association, Dr. Margaret Mongera, laments that it's an act of selfishness for legislators to be given fat allowances at such a time when the country is in urgent need of funds to contain the Ebola epidemic.
It's paradoxical that members of parliament who really should be out there trying to make sure that health workers are better looked after, and now did not do much when it came to advocating for an improved remuneration, but instead now are increasing their own allowances. So it's absurd, and I think it is demoralizing for health workers.
She also decries the manner in which health experts who are handling the Ebola epidemic are being remunerated and handled. This poor remuneration, according to Mongera, has also been the reason behind the massive exodus of doctors to different countries, which has left the country's health system in balance.
They're also training people on how to look after these epidemics. But the brain drain is massive. The people who were trained during Bundibujo are no longer there. There are new people there. Now the people who are trained this time, in a few years' time, they won't be there, and yet these epidemics continue to come. So the failure to retain, it has a negative impact on the effects of training.
Now the medical professionals want government to look into their matter if service delivery in the health sector is to improve. Some members of parliament on Monday defended their allowances, describing it as an incentive to attract MPs to attend to parliamentary business.
This is being done actually to cope up with the performance and the quality of work within the committees.
It is a normal thing for anybody who is paid for work done by government to have a salary increment or allowance increment.
Meanwhile, the latest information on the Ebola outbreak in Kagadi Hospital, Chibale district, revealed that one more suspected case was yesterday admitted, bringing the total number of admissions to 30 patients. A total of 10 cases have been confirmed to have the virus since the onset of the disease. Out of the 10, 3 have died, 3 remain admitted, while 4 have recovered from the deadly fever. No new deaths have been registered since August 3rd. As Uganda continues to battle with the Ebola hemorrhagic fever outbreak, senior health officials from different hospitals, including in Mulago, have left the country for a better pay, which poses a bigger question whether this country can handle other epidemics in the near future. Solomon Serwanja, NTV Tonight.
Well, this brings us to tonight's poll question, in which we are asking, is the move by MPs to increase their allowances justifiable? I'll say that again. Is the move by MPs to increase their allowances justifiable?
Well, to have your say, text 8778 followed by your name and where you are texting from, and we shall be reading some of your comments during tonight's newscast.
Okay, I will not put my guard down despite the challenges ahead of me in the fight against corruption. These were the comments from Permanent Secretary in the Prime Minister's office, Pius Bigirimana, during an exclusive interview with NTV. Now, just yesterday, police rearrested all 7 suspects alleged to have embezzled a still unconfirmed amount of money from the Prime Minister's office. Bigirimana has also denied some claims circulating in the media today that over 15.6 billion shillings was sent to the private accounts of over 50 personnel staff working in the PM's office. Sudhir Birhanga has all the details in tonight's investigation.
According to financial year 2010-2011, within the Prime Minister's office, over 52 workers received money on their private accounts worth 15.6 billion shillings, but the question has been as to whether that money was accounted for. But the Permanent Secretary within the same office, Pius Bigirimana, looks at those reports as a mere tactic to derail him from his fight against corruption.
But they are wasting time.
Speaking to NTV, Bigirimana says it's not his problem that the money went on the workers' accounts due to the system. He added that last year, the Auditor General questioned the previous method of giving out cash to people heading certain projects in the ministry.
So the question is that should be arising are like this. Was the activity undertaken in the work plan? Were there clear outputs? Were there clear performance indicators? If it needed a procurement, was there due process of procurement done?
Documents discovered in the property of Geoffrey Kazinda's house indicate that many of the local procurement order receipts had been signed without authorization. It is alleged that the former Principal Assistant Secretary signed several of the orders without the authorization of the PS, which abrogates established procurement procedures in place at the ministry.
And that's why you see a lot of arrests have been made.
It is alleged that Kazinda and his accomplices connived with suppliers of different items, including food, which was intended for the disaster victims of the Bududa landslides. Today, detectives escorted Biekwaso Musio to his office at the Prime Minister's building for a further search as investigations continue. Biekwaso, an assistant accounting officer, was rearrested yesterday alongside 5 other suspects to aid police with their investigations. But according to Bigirimana, the fight against corruption is a tough undertaking, but one can eventually yield success.
We cannot continue to have impunity because impunity will wreck this country. And history will judge us very harshly.
Awaiting to be taken to court is Onyu Isaiah, a cashier, Arthur Mumanyire, an accountant, Geoffrey Kazinde, principal accounting officer, Owori Martin, a commissioner at the Ministry of Disaster and Preparedness, his assistant Kezab Beatrice, Oyuku Charles, Katumwa Hussein, a petrol station manager in Tinda, and Biekwaso Musio. According to our sources, the suspects are likely to be arraigned in court tomorrow. Sudhir Birhanga, NTV.
Tonight, we'll take a short break right now, but here's some of what you can expect when we come back.
Rebel NRM MPs protest as the president remains tight-lipped on the question of succession.
And on the farm this week, Gonja, the plantain for the sweet tooth. NTV Tonight continues after this short break. Stay with us.
Don't worry, be happy. Store and update your phone contacts with MTN Backup so that you can recover them if your phone is lost or stolen. Please visit any of our service centers for details on how.
MTN. Every way.
The waterbug is part of the antelope genus and is native to Western, Central, Eastern and Southern Africa. It has a reddish-brown shaggy coat which progressively grows darker with maturity and a white bib under the throat. It is generously covered with thin brownish oily grease that has a distinct musky odor. It's easily recognized by a distinctive white band on the rump encircling the tail and the long bow-shaped ringed horns of the male, which go up to 100 centimeters long. The female has no horns. The waterbug stands up to 1.3 meters at the shoulder and weighs from 160 to 240 kilograms. The waterbug roves in small herds in marshes, scrub and savanna areas near water where they mainly eat grass and require large...
This is NTV.
A paltry 8% of you are saying yes, MPs are justified in asking for an increment in their allowances. 92% of you say no. Please keep those comments coming.
Well, moving on, officials in the National Drug Authority are investigating approximately 10 drug companies suspected of supplying substandard drugs in the country.
Well, this revelation comes a day after the authority suspended Flamingo Pharmaceuticals, an Indian firm that they say did not comply with good manufacturing practices.
The Executive Director of the National Drug Authority, Dr. Gordon Sematiko, told the Parliamentary Committee on Health that this is a government move to weed out fake drugs on the market.
Majority of Ugandans get their first-line treatment in many of these drug shops and clinics, and you might be among the consumers of drugs which are unsafe for your life. But the authorities responsible for quality control of drugs in the country, the National Drug Authority, are raising a red flag on some of the drugs Ugandans are consuming on the market. About 10 drug manufacturers are undergoing investigation for supplying fake drugs in the country.
A formal complaint we got from National Medical Stores had about 10 companies where they had suspicion on the products. And these complaints had come from national referral hospitals, and we think the professionals had a reason for the complaint.
Dr. Sematiko did not divulge the identity of the companies and the countries of origin for fear of jeopardizing their investigations.
As I talk, I have a team of three teams of inspectors which are outside the country, again to do impromptu checks to the factories where we have suspicions.
This revelation comes a day after the authorities suspended an Indian firm Flamingo Pharmaceuticals said not to be compliant with good manufacturing practices.
I would say Flamingo products have been a household products because they are relatively many, 87 products. The products we are talking about, the stock is about $1 million, which is the stock of about 2.5 billion Uganda shillings.
This is a landmark. If we sustain this effort, we are going to eliminate poor quality drugs from the market in Uganda, and that is what we have to do as a country.
About 60 types of drugs which are being supplied by Flamingo have been suspended. They include amoxicillin, Profen Plus, ampicillin, among many other drugs. Meanwhile, the National Medical Stores General Manager Moses Kamabale insists that TB drugs are in plenty, dispelling rumors of it being scarce.
So how can anybody, any Ugandan, say that they want TB medicines and they cannot get them and they blame it on animals? Because for us, we have informed all the health facilities that we have enough medicines. We have more than enough. I went to government and said, give me the money. The government gave me the money. I procured the things, they are there. People are not ordering for them.
Kamabalis are accusing some Ministry of Health officials for requisitioning money through a supplementary budget to buy drugs meant for nodding disease when the drugs are actually available in the medical stores.
At the component of medicines under that supplementary, remove it because we have the medicines. Yes, it's in writing. You can confirm this.
Kamabare reported a shortfall of 15 billion shillings in the budget to procure drugs, but said hospitals and health centers will have to suffer budget cuts to pay for the already available drugs in the stores. The two were appearing before the Parliamentary Committee on Health. Jingo Francis, NTV Parliament.
Now, NRM members of Parliament have added their voices of disapproval to those of their colleagues in the opposition over President Yoweri Museveni's comments on his succession. A section of the press over the weekend reported President Museveni as saying that he is yet to identify someone visionary enough to lead both the NRM party and Uganda as well, thus justifying his continued stay at the helm. Addressing the media today at Parliament, the legislators branded the president's utterances as an insult to Ugandans.
Speaking during a meeting with members of the NRM Buganda Region Task Force at State House in Entebbe last Thursday, the president said his retirement is being delayed only because he has not yet identified someone with the required experience to take Uganda forward. This, President Museveni said, also applies to the position of party chairman, which he currently holds. This has not gone down well with some within the president's own fold, with a group of visibly furious NRM MPs coming out to castigate their boss for not setting a good precedent.
We are destroying this record, not against the publishers, not against Museveni as a person, but the dark statement he made must never be allowed to stand in the archives and annals of this country. And for that matter, we tear that statement and we cast it completely. And also, for me, this points out to one important thing. Honorable members, it means this party needs serious reforms.
Remiaga MP Theodore Sechikubo went on to urge for the promotion of the country first ahead of a personality contest.
President Museveni, being a mortal like any one of us, must leave the stage at some point in time. But Uganda as a country will not die or end with him.
Outspoken Buyaga West MP Barnabas Tinkasimire does not understand how the president has failed to single out anyone suitable to fill his shoes, saying even himself bears the qualities that President Museveni claims he cannot find.
Personally, I believe if I didn't have a vision, I would not have been elected as a member of parliament for Buyaga County in the 8th parliament and Buyaga West in the 9th parliament.
Come 2016, NRM, if it is a party I belong to, will definitely have a candidate to challenge President Museveni. That is a fact.
But Information Minister and Government spokesperson Mary Karoro Okurut says anybody with substance is free to challenge the president.
If anybody feels that they want to come and they are capable and they are ready, let them come to the delegates conference and nobody will bar them. It's open competition.
The debate about the succession and retirement time for President Museveni has been renewed in recent months, with a number of religious leaders also calling on the president not to stand for another term in the next elections. Well, sweet plantain, locally referred to as gonja, is one of the favorite banana species available on the market because of the natural sweet taste and the many forms through which it can be cooked. But this fruit, which does well in the tropics, has become a commercial fruit in some areas where it is now grown on a large scale for commercial purposes, as we find out in this week's On the Farm Agriculture feature.
Plantains have been popular as a street delicacy, and it is what Robert Chatuka of Muti Parish in Mitoma district calls his moneymaker. Plantains are a major food staple in Equatorial Africa and many regions across the world. They are especially attractive to growers because they fruit all year round, making them a highly reliable all-season staple food. This is particularly important for communities living in mountains or forests with inadequate food storage, preservation and transportation technologies. Robert, who has grown sweet plantain for close to 6 years, is now overjoyed at his good-looking plantation. But how did it all begin?
Originally my father was a farmer, so I picked that idea from my father, seeing how he was engaged in doing it. So I copied it from my father.
He was also having gonja.
He was having it, but on small scale, about few banana trees.
Now he has truly become a master at the art of growing sweet plantain on this fertile land that he acquired from his father. He specializes in a local variety which requires little attention. But because he was initially a coffee farmer, he decided to incorporate the plantation into his coffee growing, a decision that he says he has never regretted. But like most bananas which possess a scientific phenomenon and develop growing downward as gravity dictates, they take in more sunlight. So he has to carefully care for the bananas.
The kind of care that they need is pruning, thinning, removing all the leaves, and even when there is too much wind, they need support because they usually fall when you don't have supports to support the trees to support them.
This is because the plant becomes heavier with maturing fruit because they take in more and more sunlight, which changes their natural growth hormones. This brings about a puzzling phenomenon, and they begin to turn and unbelievably grow upward. But like many plantations, Robert's biggest challenge is the pests that attack his crop.
Have a major problem of banana bacteria wilt, which is becoming a problem because we need to cut off the affected one and dig and put it and dig and put the affected one in the soil.
Richard harvests between 20 to 30 branches a week, and he makes close to 800,000 a month from the bananas. But sometimes the weather does not favor his harvests.
Is that when it is rainy season, our roads are maram roads. So we don't have vehicles. Vehicles fail to come this way, and when they fail to come this way, and when the ngonzi is ready, it must ripe, and as it ripe, then you have to sell it at any price you see. So that one is also a challenge, which is brought by too much rain.
At the moment, Robert is seeking to learn more about plantain farming in order to stop depending on local knowledge and receive better yields. He has in the meantime distributed shoots to other farmers with the aim of encouraging them to grow the same because of the great yields he has been able to achieve.
Okay, now in a return to our top story, which we've just received from the Commonwealth Resort in Munyonyo. the conflict in the Congo, which has been escalating, has brought together the opening of the regional summit of the Great Lakes region that began today in Kampala, with heads of state deliberating ways in which the escalating crisis there can be ended. Well, President Museveni hosted 4 of his counterparts at the summit, where they discussed setting up a neutral international force to maintain security in the conflict-prone DRC. Chris Ochamringa has just sent us this report.
Presidents from 4 African countries attended the International Conference on the Great Lakes Region Summit in Kampala to discuss the escalating security situation in eastern DRC. The heads of state spent hours in a closed-door meeting trying to hammer out an agreement to end the violence caused by the M23 rebels and other numerous militias operating within eastern DRC. One of the issues top on the meeting's agenda was the setting up of an international neutral force in eastern DRC to prevent rebel groups from destabilizing the region.
We want peace, we want guns to stop. So that is one thing.
Uganda would like a force that will satisfy the major players in this conflict, that is the DRC and Rwanda. Whatever composite that will satisfy both of them, because they are the key players here, we will support them.
Earlier this year, the DRC's President Joseph Kabila accused Rwanda of aiding the M23 rebels to create a mutiny in eastern DRC. The accusations were later re-echoed by a leaked UN report, which subsequently saw foreign powers such as the US, Britain and the Netherlands suspend aid to Rwanda. The heads of state are still holed up in the meeting, trying to thrash out the finer details of an agreement aimed at ending the crisis in the DRC. Now, that region has been plagued by conflict for decades, with some serious ramifications on the region's security. Chris Ochamringa, NTV, Kampala.
Now, in order to assess what the 2-day summit can achieve and the possible solutions that can emerge, I'm delighted to be joined here in the studio by Nicholas Opio, a legal consultant and a social and political commentator. A very warm welcome to NTV Tonight, Nicholas.
Thank you very much, Gabriel.
Okay. Well, to start with, 6 heads of state from the Great Lakes region, including a host of influential leaders from both Africa and around, and around the world. How different do you think this summit is going to be in comparison to others that have been held on the conflict in Congo?
Well, first and foremost, this summit is being held under the auspices of the International Conference for the Great Lakes region. So it's a local initiative. It's an initiative of countries within the region with the support of other international players. That's the only unique part about it. But I think that the bigger problem of Congo may not necessarily be sorted out by conflicts, by conferences or summits such as this one. Because I think that Congo's problem is a domestic problem. If any country wants to support Congo, would want to see long-term peace in Congo, the answer, in my view, lies in having a democratic, strong and stable government in Congo, not a weak, illegitimate government that we have in the DRC.
Now, the summit, Nicholas has attracted 11 member states, including Uganda, Rwanda, representatives from the United Nations, the African Union. What would you say is the interest of all these different parties in this summit?
Well, Congo still is the biggest African country. It's a country that has been bedecked by conflict for a very long time. So the stability of Congo is crucial for the Great Lakes region, is crucial for Africa. We cannot afford another failed state in the middle or in the heart of Africa. So I think the strategic importance of Congo, its central location, but also its rich mineral wealth is important for the African economy. And therefore, the international interest in Congo is to ensure that this region remains stable. Because if you have Congo that is unstable, you have about 10 African countries that might be affected directly or indirectly by Congo's instability. So the interest in Congo is legitimate. The interest in seeing Congo becoming a stable state is important for the Great Lakes region, but also for the African continent.
Okay. Now, we've seen conflict in the Congo ever since the Belgians were there. And here is a summit that has been convened to find solutions to a problem that is, like you've admitted, has been there for decades. Do you think there's going to be a solid outcome out of this summit in Kampala?
Well, there are definitely going to be certain high pronouncements made by the heads of states, but whether this pronouncement will translate into actual results in the DRC remains to be seen, because I think that for a long time now, several international players have been involved in the DRC. You have a UN peacekeeping force in the DRC. You've had Uganda not once, not twice going to Congo. You've had the Rwandan army not once but twice going back into Congo. So I think that what remains to be seen is going forward what these countries can do. My view, my own personal view, is that Congo does not need an external military intervention now. Whatever name you call it, any armed group in Congo will only be sorting out a short-term problem of the Congo. Congo's biggest problem is an extremely weak and others argue legitimate government in Kinshasa that should be helped to be able to govern that country. In the absence of that, all these interventions by the UN, by the African Union, or by Uganda or Rwanda will only be short-term security-oriented solutions to the problems in the DRC. Long-term solutions support the government of the DRC, let them establish a strong, legitimate and credible government to govern that country, because that is the problem of the DRC. The problem of the DRC is not Rwanda, it's not Uganda. Uganda is only a manifestation of the weakness in the DRC, but also partly an exploitation of our own democratic deficiencies in Uganda, because the rebels you have in the DRC as a result of internal eruptions in Uganda, the rebels you have from Rwanda in the DRC are internal eruptions in Rwanda. So I think that the long-term solution is let the government in Congo be a stable government, a legitimate government, a strong government, but also countries around the region must begin to sort their problems. So you don't have Rwanda having an excuse for going to DRC, you don't have Uganda having an excuse to go into the DRC.
Okay, and I mean, you've said the issue of governance is highlighted in being Congo's biggest problem. But are there some other internal factors that need to be tackled, say at a summit that is going on in Munyonyo by these leaders, if there's to be a lasting peace return to that country?
I think every country will always going to have some internal, differences, some internal eruptions. That can only be sorted out if you have a strong government in that country. There are, of course, tribal issues in Congo. You have Hutus in the DRC. You have the Lendos in the DRC who have problems. In fact, the entire eastern DRC is more or less detached from western DRC. And then you have these problems of exclusion, problems of resource sharing and all this. So that has to be resolved by the government in Congo, by the sovereign state of Congo. It cannot be resolved by the governments of Uganda or by the government of Rwanda or by the UN or the AU. I think that what we can do for Congo is to make sure that that government is stable, to make sure that that government has the capacity to maintain a credible, stable force, to have credible control and firm control of eastern and western DRC. Okay. Because if you don't have that, you're still going to have a void in this part of the DRC, and that will be a fertile breeding ground for negative forces in the region.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicholas Opio. We'll leave it here because time is not on our side. Thank you for joining us on NTV tonight.
Pleasure.
Well, I have been speaking to Nicholas Opio. He's a legal consultant and social political commentator on the conference that is currently being held at Speak Resort Munyonyo to find a solution to the crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. We'll go for a short break right now, but Malcolm Musime returns after the break with NTV Business. Stay with us.
Zakayo, so that it is ridiculous after 49 years to go through another election. And he says, no, enough is enough. So we are calling upon our president that Zakayo has demonstrated the most credible example, the most visionary example for this country.
This is NTV.
Kwene embeera y'abasajja bano
essuubi nga lyakuggwamu maama.
Bano abasajja bano abasajja abanaatera n'okujja kusigiriza ffe ekiro basituleko emiwumbo gy'emmere bagitwale.
Sogera byange kubanga bana bagamba nga bagamba ne bweyagala nkubulira ebyange ja tugende emyanzi.
Mpulira abanyumya babeera bakujerega waliko omusawo w'ekinnansi. South Africa baba bakujerega ebituufu
baba banjerega. Oyo mufere mubbi yennyini yeetaaga miggo.
Omuntu wa bulijjo tomuzannyirangako abeeranga dormant volcano.
Bwemba mukkiriza nina takuwa mugiyita
ate takuwa gobeera mugoberezi tolowooza nti buli mulimo gwonna oyogerera omusiraamu singa naakubuuza nti Katonda yagamba atya.
Oba oli pasita ng'okyawa olimba obba oyenda olina abakazi basatu. Please, heaven is waiting for you. One day you'll pay and soon your time is out.
Otiisa mmoni.
Sitiisa nkubuulira Yesu talimba.
Ebintu mbimala mulundi gumu kati what is I love peace.
Gwokola byo.
Wegase n'omusajja mutwale mabi.
Kwene embeera y'abasajja bano
essuubi nga lyakuggwamu maama.
Bano abasajja
NTV Business with Umeme. Good evening, Malcolm Sime. You're most welcome to NTV Business Night. And first, the Uganda Hotel Owners Association has raised concern over the failure by the line ministries of Trade and Tourism to conduct a campaign to diffuse misconceptions abroad about the Ebola outbreak in the country. Ismail Sekandi, the executive director of the Hotel Owners Association, adds that government must quickly unveil a counter strategy amidst misleading international media reports to aid them return visitors. NTV's Reno John was there.
The Uganda Hotel Owners Association says that the Ebola epidemic that has since generated extensive publicity in the international press is having an impact on the leisure and hospitality sector, urging the Trade and Tourism Ministry to act.
You know, we are in a heavy interaction with the public, guests internationally, but definitely as hoteliers, we can do so much internally to sensitize, to train our people how to avoid Ebola. But I think it is now encompassed on the government, especially the Minister of Tourism, because we are talking about tourists visiting Kivale, visiting other destinations.
He was speaking on the sidelines of a move by the Uganda Hotel Owners Association to set up communal hygiene that targeted the displaced after the Bududa landslide in eastern Uganda, with various donations handed over to the disaster ministry.
But we need to come out openly as people in the tourism sector, especially through our minister, that tourists should not be worried, because it has a very negative long-term impact on the tourists.
Related on the other industry challenges, the hotel owners also say that delayed classification of their facilities, now a mandate under the East African Community, remains of concern. Reina Urgent, NTV Business.
Now let's take a look at more news in business. And with limited capacity by Uganda's foreign missions in doing their job of promoting the country, this role is increasingly being done by Ugandans in the diaspora. As Samuel Sutumba reports, the Ugandan diaspora in Nordic countries have embarked on an initiative to promote the country aimed at attracting investments into Uganda by showcasing our potential.
Ugandans in diaspora are not stopping at sending money home worth $2 billion annually, but are now unwittingly doing government's job of promoting Uganda abroad. The diaspora group in the Nordic region, including Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Iceland, among others, is showcasing Uganda, especially its tourism, through their convention scheduled for the 1st to 10th September this year. The organizers behind the association claim it can do more for business.
This association can arrange for your travel from Uganda to the Nordics region, and then we shall link you up to the relevant offices that are concerned with your line of business, be it tourism, value addition, agro-processing, transport, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, name it. We have the relevant contact people.
According to Jackson Mugisha, the association has already brought some investors from the Nordic countries.
These people were here, courtesy of our initiative, the Ugandans in diaspora. We organized a powerful delegation that came here. Investors who are so keen in the oil sector and revamping the agriculture sector, who have already showed interest, and I think it's important that government looked into their proposals and give them a chance to invest, because they have a 76-year experience in this area that is environmentally friendly, that has agriculture on its priority list, because you don't have to leave other sectors hanging.
Latest in a financial market report.
Financial Report is brought to you by
URA, developing Uganda together.
All vehicles are required to revalidate their registration using our new online module and get a new logbook. All newly imported vehicles will also be registered online using this new online module. Get out of the line and get online.
That rounds up NTV Business for tonight. Thanks ever so much for watching. I'll take you back to Gabriel and Faith for more news.
Use side lamps with energy savers instead of overhead lights.
Ideally, we all have the right to express our opinions and views truthfully and openly.
Atele lom tugenda katongole mbukasam.
Kampala bwerere mwansomu the bus. The discussion is still going on in the bus.
Tulino kugumira challenges ezimu gwe tuba tulino goba abatembeyi mwami lukwaga agumaga abatembeyi mugende no mbadde ndala kunyonyola omukulu mbadde ndala kunyonyola omwami yagambye nti meya lukwago ye meya omutuufu
gavumenti ekutte lukwago emunyigira mu nsonga takyekyusa.
Welcome back to minibus kyogereko.
Teko omusajja abankwana nga njagala sifa ku kya ssente wabula nfa ku mbeera yeyisa
alimba ono
This is minibus kyogereko.
Good evening, I am Joel Kamadi and welcome to NTV Sport. Now tomorrow, the London Olympics will provide Moses Kipsiro with a second chance to go for the only medal missing in his long list of accolades, that is the Olympic medal. Kipsiro will also count on the support of fellow countrymen Geoffrey Kusuro and Abraham Kiplimo. Uganda's most successful long-distance runner has won medals at all the top athletic levels except the Olympics. Kipsiro was on Saturday confident his dream was finally crystallizing when he was stripped at 7 minutes 36 seconds into the 10,000 meter final. By the time he recovered, the front pack was well ahead. He finished 10th. The men's 5,000 meters is the only event where Uganda managed to fill its quota of the 3 runners, while Kiplimo is one of Team Uganda's juniors. Kusuro on his part brings a wealth of experience. He was at the Beijing Olympics where Kipsiro eventually finished 4th. A medal in the race will come as a big relief for a country that has had the bulk of its competitors failing to make it from the preliminaries in London. Usain Bolt began his bid to add a second Olympic 200 meters crown to his 2 100-meter titles with a hugely comfortable heat victory. The Jamaican, who clocked an Olympic record 9.63 seconds to retain his 100-meter crown on Sunday, cruised to victory in 20.39 seconds. Bolt has said he needs to win the 200-meter gold again before he achieves his aim of becoming a legend. Finally, 7 Cameroonian athletes have absconded while in Britain for the Olympics, officials say. The 7, including 5 boxers, are suspected to have decided to stay in Europe for economic reasons, Reuters news agency reports. A reserve goalkeeper for the women's soccer team, Drusilla Ngako, was the first to disappear, the agency quoted Cameroon's Olympic mission as saying. In June, an Ethiopian torchbearer, Nathanael Yemane, also disappeared. He went missing from a hotel in Nottingham. Now, kickboxer Malik Kalisa has been granted bail after paying 300,000 shillings in cash. He will return to court on the 13th of this month. The plaintiff narrated his ordeal to NTV, saying he was assaulted.
He, however, denied the charges, and the Buganda Road Court magistrate granted him bail after paying 300,000 shillings cash. Court has retained Kalisa Malik's passport and released him after his sureties paid the money. The plaintiff, Moses Karunji, narrated his ordeal to NTV on how the alleged incident happened.
My manager handed over the money to me, and these thieves maybe were saying that my manager was giving me some dollars, so they waylaid me. When I was coming from the toilet, they boxed me from behind. That Malik man boxed me. I fell down. And then he removed the money from my pocket and they took off.
He is to return to court on the 13th this month.
International sport, Santi Cazorla has revealed he can't wait to get started at Arsenal after completing his £16.5 million move. Elsewhere, FIFA have refuted claims made by one of their former corruption experts that they are investigating match-fixing allegations at the 2010 World Cup. The 27-year-old Spain international arrives at the Emirates from Malaga as Arsene Wenger shakes up his squad. Wenger, who has already signed Lucas Podolski and Olivier Giroud, is delighted to have finally secured Cazorla. Cazorla is already with Arsenal at their German training camp, where he has been since Monday when his now former employers, Malaga, allowed him leave while the final points of the deal were eked out by the two clubs. Wayne Rooney insists he is on track to be fully fit for the start of Manchester United's new Barclays Premier League season. The striker only started pre-season just over a week ago, just being granted extra time off following his efforts in helping England reach the Euro 2012 quarter-finals in June. Rooney is relishing the prospect of United's friendly clash with Barcelona in Gothenburg on Wednesday as he looks to build match sharpness ahead of the club's big kickoff on August 20th. Finally, a former FIFA security expert sparked new fears that match-fixing and corruption are rife in international football last night by claiming at least one World Cup match has been investigated. In an interview with Channel 4 News, Chris Eaton, FIFA's former head of security, also claimed a player from the championship had reported concerns to the corruption unit. The World Cup game under scrutiny, according to Eaton, was a Group B fixture between Nigeria and Greece at South Africa 2010. And that winds up NTV Sport for tonight. Thanks for watching.
And now to Wednesday's weather prospect. Let's now take you back to tonight's NTV poll, and we asked you earlier, is the move by MPs to increase their allowances justifiable? Thank you so much for all of your comments. Let's now sample some of them. But first, before we sample those comments, the final poll result is out. 13% of you are saying yes. 87% of our respondents tonight say no.
Well, now looking at some of your comments, Taban from Kansanga says no, MPs should consider developing Uganda as first priority, then money as last priority. Okay,
Sisi Lutalo, let them first advocate for teachers and doctors' salary increments. Otherwise, if I call them good for nothings, I wouldn't be wrong.
And Roman Arnold here says yes, they also have families to feed.
Finally, Mata Louis Lubega, you say MPs are living up to the saying, those that do have, more shall be added unto them. They are doing all of this without caring about the law-laying people that they represent. Okay, that concludes NTV Tonight. Thank you so much for contributing. NTV poll will return tomorrow with yet another question for our discussion. I will be back later with NTV Late Night, so do be sure to stay tuned for that. It's a wrap for NTV Tonight. I'm Gabriel Epeno.
And I'm Faith Ariho. Good night.
This is NTV. This is NTV. This is NTV.